But awesome. Well, Chris just confirmed that he can see the countdown, and we're live now. I'm Lillian Minix with Timmons Group, a marketing communications manager, and I'm here with Chris Aebel. Chris is a project manager in our Virginia Beach office, and he's going to tell us all about a really unique project. I think, honestly, probably like project of the century is kind of the vibes that I'm getting from it. It's a really, really wild project called LS GreenLink from a Korean company that has come over to the coastline over in Virginia off of the Elizabeth River. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, to create cables that will be used for something. Chris knows way more than I do.
Yeah, subsea power cables. Yeah, like offshore wind and things like that. Yeah.
Perfect. I think I kept getting it confused with some of the other projects that this company has done before, which were underwater fiber cables. And I know that whether, or maybe I'm mistaken in that too, they're creating cables.
Well, yeah, and they're LS is affiliated with LG Electronics, who everybody probably knows more.
That's what it is.
With. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to stop butchering it, and I'm going to let you tell us a little bit more. But first, I wanted to introduce you. So, like I said, Chris is the project manager in our Virginia Beach office. Over 30 years of experience is what we had just discussed a few minutes ago. That is wild. And now you're at Timmons Group and just really chugging along with some really neat projects. And you graduated from ODU. We don't have to list a year. That's okay.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about how you found yourself from ODU at Timmons Group over the years. What's going on?
You know, I just being born and raised in Virginia Beach and growing up and living in this area, going to ODU, it just made sense to kind of stay in this area. Love working on the projects in this area and getting to experience things as they come out of the ground, take my kids by sites that we're working on and things like that. So, you know, I've had a few stays at some companies for decades of portions of my career at a time. And then the opportunity to join Timmons a few years ago came, and it seemed like a really good fit for me. And I'm thankful I made the move. So
good.
Yeah, all good.
Absolutely. I love the background, and it's particularly interesting to me to learn from the Hampton Roads area, did the school thing, stayed in the area. It is just such a robust region of Virginia. It's the reason that we have two separate offices there is because there's so much growth and so many people to support, and the community there is just fantastic. So it makes sense.
Absolutely. Something for everybody.
Yeah, I love it. Well, let's kick this off. I really want to ask you some questions about this project with LS GreenLink, and I'm going to pull up the rendering here in a minute. It's a particularly unique looking building. And as I butchered on the beginning of our call, I know that there's a reason why it's so unique looking.
Sure.
So can you give us a little bit of the lay of the land about the project as a whole as I pull up the rendering to share?
Sure. Yeah. So this the site the project is going to be built on. It's about 100 acres in size on the Elizabeth River in Chesapeake, just south of the Portsmouth line. And the LS development team actually did a nationwide search to find the right site that had the size that they needed, access to deep water and things that they needed to operate this business. And they settled on this particular site. And as you can see, they've got a number of buildings proposed on the site, 7 in fact, and the most prominent of which is about a 700-foot tall tower that is actually used to manufacture the cables themselves. And the way it works, they actually, and it's interesting, this building only has 2 floors in it, even though it's 700 feet tall. It's got the ground floor and then the very top floor. And the process that they have come up with to make these cables is that they feed the materials actually from the top of the tower and use gravity to center roughly a 3 to 4 inch diameter copper cable in the middle of a dinner plate size casing. And by using gravity, it's just the most efficient way to make these cables and maintain the integrity of the whole construction process. And then as these miles and miles of cables are manufactured, you see the circular carousel features along the water's edge. the cables are transferred to these circular carousels, and then a large vessel will pull up and dock, and it has a similar carousel on it. And they essentially wind the cable from the land to the ship, kind of like a cassette tape being wound, and then they take it to wherever it needs to go around the world. So it's a pretty amazing process. They compare themselves to the kind of an advanced manufacturing facility that would be like Tesla or something like that. It's a very clean facility, both in their process and everything related to it. So yeah, that's pretty much how the operation works.
That is wild. And so this building is kind of the crown jewel of the development, right? I mean, it's going to be the tallest building. Ooh, I don't want to butcher something else, but is it the tallest building between Philadelphia and Charlotte?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's incredibly impressive. Over just about 700 feet tall, or just over?
Little under 700 feet tall. So yeah, almost a couple hundred feet taller than the Westin here in Virginia Beach by comparison.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredibly impressive. And so once these cables are created in this building, they'll come over here where they're kind of wound up onto spools, like you said, and they can hit the river just right here from this dock, which was part of the site selection process for LS GreenLink when they were looking for this, for a place to put this building. They wanted it somewhere where, vessels could come in easily and transport the cables immediately after production.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Yep. Did they tell you about how long it takes for one portion of cable to be created?
I guess the best way to answer that, they can, I want to say it's 300 to 400 miles of cable they can produce in a year.
Wow.
And the price tag on that is roughly $10 million per mile of cable that they produce. So it's expensive, to say the least.
Expensive and impressive, but it, doing the community a great justice, because these are cables that will eventually connect us to power from offshore wind, and offshore wind is in and of itself, to your point a few minutes ago, a very renewable form of energy. And it's, how cool is it to be, a part of that? That is the future of energy, and of how our grid that's already created is going to connect with this new form of energy.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, and definitely the need for this is there. They've got about a 7-year backlog at last check. So
wow. Yeah,
they need to get these cables in production as soon as possible.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the project from a technical engineering perspective. And, I didn't introduce this topic when we first started, but it's National Engineers Week this week. And so we wanted to celebrate with you, having known that you've been, carrying this project and the project manager working so closely with these folks at LS GreenLink. We really wanted to celebrate that, because it is, again, such a unique project. But I know that it's unique looking and its function is very unique, but we've talked, you and I have talked a little bit from the grand scheme of engineering. It's actually kind of straightforward in a lot of ways, as long as you're familiar with Hampton Roads engineering, right?
Correct. Yeah. I think the biggest challenges we faced is how many agencies we've had to engage as we're working through the site plan approval process. Obviously, we've had to deal with or to coordinate with the FAA based on the height of the tower, and working through the approval of that. We've got, in order to access the site, we have to cross the railroad. So we're engaged with Norfolk Southern. Mm-hmm. We're also working with Norfolk because we crossed 2 of their raw water mains, working with Portsmouth because that's where our sewer needs to discharge. The Navy is our neighbor on this project, and so we've had to communicate with them about visibility from the tower onto adjacent properties, and the architects have actually designed a recessed louvered type of window that will be in the top of this tower, that will limit the view shed to where it is not onto Navy properties. That's the other thing I forgot to mention. The top floor of this tower, in addition to where all the materials to construct the cables are fed from, there will be a meeting or conference room up there that has windows and is usable for meetings and things like that. So, and they want to open that up to the community in some way, shape, or form. So I look forward to being able to see Hampton Roads and everything from that altitude. It'll be pretty amazing. But other folks we've had to engage, DEQ and the Corps of Engineers for some wetland permitting. And of course, we've had to work with the city of Chesapeake to get the plan approval itself. So really, it's like doing 10 projects in one in terms of all the approvals and processes we need to navigate to make this happen.
Absolutely. And so what I'm hearing is that when you and I talked the other day, you said, oh, it's like it's a big project, but it's pretty straightforward. What I'm hearing is that you just have these amazing relationships with all of these, folks that help bring these projects to fruition. That for you, this is the norm. You just have such a unique relationship with so many of your projects, and really in being so invested in all of the moving parts, that you sound like the perfect person to have taken this behemoth of a project on, Chris.
I don't know about the perfect person, but I'm sure enjoying it and definitely leveraging the relationships that I've developed over my career. And, even Timmons, this project came to Timmons Group because of the relationships they had built in the past with the city of Chesapeake, economic development, our friends at the Hampton Roads Alliance, and the fact that Timmons had actually looked at multiple developments over the past decade on this same piece of property. So we already had that internal historic knowledge that was very helpful in getting this project started.
That's great. What a fun way to celebrate Engineers Week. I've got a few more technical questions about the project, and I know that we're, kind of hit at the 12-minute mark now, so maybe just another few minutes. But
sure.
If I start zooming in, can you tell me a little bit about some of these moving parts and maybe some of the services that we provided or are providing on the project? So these are the carousels you had mentioned. What sorts of, if there's a little bit of traffic in here, right? You've got roadway, and then there's definitely a lot of stormwater involved in this. What about some geotechnical services or any other unique?
Yeah, so they had, the owners, LS, had engaged some other geotech firms that prepared reports and recommendations for how to deal with foundations and things on this site. The site itself is an old fill site, and there's some dredge spoil material out there. So it is, of the available pieces of land, it checks a lot of boxes. High quality soils is not one of them. So there's going to be a pretty substantial program of pile supported structures on this project. Even the carousels out by the water, certainly the tower, and they're even going to have to do some either dynamic compaction or soil surcharging for roads and things like that, because over time those will settle as the soils compress beneath them. So it's a very challenging site in that regard, and it's been interesting to hear the structural engineers from Korea interfacing with the geotech guys and talk through the different options that are available to them. Because obviously, it's foundations of that nature are very costly, and trying to look for the most efficient way to solve that problem and ensure the safety and integrity of the buildings in the future.
Absolutely. And also really leaning into some local connections. This team that you're working with is not as familiar with the soil types that are in Virginia, especially soil types in Hampton Roads are kind of all over the place, right? The closer you get to the coast, the more, variety of sand or aggregate or clay type soils you have. And so creating something like this on a site that large, you might run into 3 or 4 different types of soils in the same site.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're coming up with a comprehensive plan right now to address all that and be ready to start putting whatever they need to in the ground when we get their site plan approval in a few months.
Good. Well, fantastic. Chris, thanks so much. This is, I know I've said it probably a dozen times on the call, but this is such a unique project, and we're really excited to be a part of it. I think at the end of the day, it's a great use of time and energy and resources to build something like this that will help not just with, offshore wind and other renewable energy sources, kind of getting that electricity into the grid, but also because, to your point, this site was a fill site, and we'd love to see things being reused or repurposed for sustainability.
Yeah,
So it's,
absolutely.
yeah,
And they're creating over 300 local jobs as well. They're going to bring their Korean team over to train the local workforce up, and so yeah, it's a great win for Hampton Roads for sure.
yeah, a win-win-win. Perfect. I love it. I love it. Well, Chris, thank you so much. You and I will be in touch. I think that we're hoping to publish a story about this project as well, and of course with some feedback and some input with some other partners that are invested in the project as well. But in the grand scheme of everything, I think that it's just such a cool project to talk about. And thank you all for joining us on the call. If you were listening live, we're here again with Chris Aebel, and we'll have something published about this LS GreenLink project here in the future. But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your National Engineers Week, and we'll talk soon.
All right, thanks.
All right, thanks, Chris.
Bye.